Welcome to Inside the Upside Down. I'm Mike Ricksecker, author and ghost historian. With me is our chat shenanigator, Shana. And tonight we're discussing ghost kids and child spirits. Shana's had a lot of different experiences with these types of spirits. They really call out to her. And so we thought it would be a good time to talk about her experiences, kind of relate some of the different things that have happened on investigations we've gone to, buildings we've visited, things that she's experienced in the past, cemeteries, all kinds of different experiences. So just real quick, if you are new to the channel, please go ahead and subscribe and click that little bell icon to get notifications about everything that we have going on. Plus, Shana, we have hit our 6,000 subscribers. It's a pretty big deal. So I want to thank everybody out there for all that you've done to, of course, one, subscribe to us and watch us and join us in for these different broadcasts that we do or different videos that we produce. We would not be able to do any of this without you guys, so we definitely appreciate the support. So we are doing a giveaway for that. And just real quick, I know I already talked about Edge of the Rabbit Hole, and many of you are already tuned in, but for those that missed it or just tuned in for this show or are watching the replay, what we're going to be doing for the next week, and I got this from the King of Random in that channel, is a little bit different than what we've done before with just drawing the name out of the hat. So what we're doing here, this is a sharing type of a giveaway type of contest sort of thing. And so what we're asking people to do is, share out our different videos. Maybe it's a video, a playlist, the actual channel, what have you. Post on any of your social media. And just gather up those shares and likes and whatever it is, a heart, depending on the social media, and then take a screenshot when you've got all that stuff piled up, send it to us, and whoever has the most, we're doing shirt, ghosty, and book. So it's a trifecta. It's a pretty substantial giveaway. So that's for hitting 6,000. We are still gunning for 10,000 by my birthday, so we hope to get there. Diane Hilbert saying I missed your name. Did I miss Diane Hilbert's name earlier? I may have, and if I did, I apologize, Dan. So, all right, here we go. So, Shana, child spirits, ghost kids, whatever you want to call them, they seem to really call out to you. What's the deal?
I've always kind of wondered that, over the years, because, I've interacted with adult spirits as well, but if there's a child, if there's energy within, even if it's the room furthest away from me in a building, I'll be able to feel them. It's almost like, maybe it's just because, as a mother too, maybe it's just the mom vibe going on. Because there's a lot of times in certain spots with certain ones, after I had gotten to know them a little more, and after I started to recognize their energy and discern it from others, where I noticed that whenever it hit me, it's initially started feeling different, than any of the others. And where some of them is just, coming out of the gate like a buzz, or, you can just tell there's energy in the room. It kind of felt like butterflies, or like a little, like spasm almost, in the stomach area. So, and my own kids, growing up, and still, do sometimes when I see it's like, oh, there's my kid, if I see him in the room, or see him across a crowded room, or if I see him, because I love my kids. So, right. It's a, similar kind of feeling. So, but different.
We have a question right off the bat from Judy Wilson. We are going to get into some specific cases because I've grabbed a bunch of screenshots and whatnot from some of our investigations and other things. So, but from Judy Wilson, do kids ever ask you for help, and if so, what can you do for them?
You know, I've never really had any come, out where I picked up on a help me vibe, like I'm in trouble, I don't want to be here. Mostly, it's a lot of curiosity, or were they, a playful kind of vibe. Sometimes, I mean, I don't really know. I guess, if I ever did pick up on that kind of vibe, it's the same way as with anybody else that needs help. First you have to find out, what it is that they need help for. Spirits aren't always very forthcoming with that. And I'm not psychic, so, you can only ask so many questions, so many different ways. I'm not one to tell a spirit to go to the light or anything like that. Right. So, because I don't know where the light is, I don't know where it goes. I have too many questions about that. So I'm not going to tell them to go anywhere. I'm just going to, while I'm there with them, just say, if you need my help, you're going to have to help me too. I need to know what you need,
right?
What you're looking for. It's the same with spirits of any age. I would handle it, the same way.
Okay. So we have Super Hearts down in Periscope from BD Flint. Thank you very much, BD, for the Super Hearts down there in Periscope. She also shared it out from down there, so which is fantastic. And then Tom McNicholas, $10 super chat up here on YouTube. So thank you very much, Tom. So, and he also had a comment, and he says Shana is a natural mother type. And he also said before
Thanks, Tom.
He also said before that be cool once you get your SLS camera and capture them. So did get the SLS camera in, just haven't had a chance to use it because it arrived just after our Vandalia investigation. So
which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it was really bad timing. So
that child I would have to connect with.
So Queen, and I think it's Queen Notifa down in Periscope asks, don't some malevolent things mask as children? How do you tell the difference?
I've always heard that, there's always that chance to me. I've never, in all of my dealings with kids, here is what I would like to think. I would like to think that my sixth sense, or my inner, my conscience, my inner, whatever it is that you call it, I would like to think that would give me a heads up. If you never know, you really don't know, that's why I don't go out of my way to say, hey, come home with me.
Right.
I mean, if something follows me, fine. You can only do so much to protect yourself from something following you home. But, it's just like, you stay here, we'll come to visit you, so.
Well,
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, it's only so much you could do. It's a very similar question to like what we've gotten recently here. Like our last Inside the Upside Down was on demons. Unfortunately, this episode was supposed to be last week, and then with all the technical problems with the power supply and everything last week, we didn't have this episode. But we got a lot of comments on that particular video about, about demons, and that, the whole, ghosts are actually demons and that sort of thing. And so, while sure, it's true that I don't think a demon is going to come out and say, "Hey, I'm a demon." People will get, like demon come. It's always like on a spirit box or an ovilus or something like that, where the word demon pops up, and it's like a demon is not going to say, "I'm a demon." There's a degree of it's going to try to trick you, it's going to try to manipulate you, and that sort of thing. So you do have to be careful, but most of these spirits that we interact with, are legitimate human spirits, and I think, maybe it's just a matter of being around them, interacting with them so many times, and just the fact that people are people. So you get a feel for who you're interacting with, and as in life, there's sometimes you get duped by people, and it's unfortunate, and people kind of backstab you, and that I think that happens in the spirit realm too, where you're interacting with something and you discover it wasn't what I originally thought it was. But for the most part, they're just people, right?
I mean, I've felt, been in places where the energy didn't feel so great.
Yeah.
There at the cafe, for example, there was good energy and there was bad energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when the good energy was around, I didn't feel the bad energy. When the bad energy was around, the good energy was nowhere around. So, if I'm able to discern between the two, I would think bad energy hangs with bad energy.
Right.
It's just like in reality, if, I'm not going to hang out with some, negative loser. I mean, I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. So, maybe it's the same way on the other side too. Who knows?
Yeah. Speaking of the cafe, since you brought it up, we do have, let me get down to our photos here. We do have Byron in a fantastic illustration by Adam Tillery. So you want to tell us a little bit about Byron? Because while there was negative energy there at the cafe, there was also this little boy.
Yeah, he was kind of unexpected, really, because, we knew the history of the building, and we knew the history of the property before the building was on it. Byron, actually came before the building did. And it was documented. He was, the site of the cafe was originally the site of a fight. And Byron had climbed up into a tree on the property, and fell out and died. So, his spirit is attached more to the property than it is to the building. And a lot of the interaction with him was upstairs. And maybe because I don't know if, everything looked the same to him or if he could actually see the building. I don't know what was, but he spent an awful lot of time upstairs. But when I saw him, he was downstairs. I was also alone, too. And just a little bit of experimenting, to see if he would come out, if he knew that I didn't have the usual toys with me, and if there was nobody else in the building with me either. And, I told him, it's just you and me, kid. It's just us. So if you want, me to see you and you don't want anybody else to see you, now's your chance. And it was basically, I'm going to, count to 3 and I'm going to step around this there was what we called Action Alley, because stuff always happened there. It was like the main dining area, then there was Action Alley, and where Action Alley was this wall, and it separated the path from the kitchen area on the other side. And when I got to 3 and I stepped around, that picture that was just up on the screen, that was him. I mean, Adam couldn't, I described him, but if I could have taken a snapshot of Byron, that's it.
Right. Now, there's a couple of observations in the chat, since, this is Adam's interpretation, but you've said that Adam got it spot on. So, let's see. From B3 Airspace, Byron looks like a 1950s child, and Bree Jones is saying that he looks sad. So, did he give you any indication, or did you get a feeling of, why he may have been sad, if that was truly his state at that time?
Well, I'll address the first part of that first 1950s. Byron actually was in the late 1880s.
Yeah, he's got suspenders there.
The building was there.
Yeah, so I don't...
Yeah.
It does look a little bit of an older...
The building was built in 1902. But I mean, that's what I saw, I was just describing what I saw. I'm assuming that the story that we had seen, and heard was, I assume that was him.
Yeah.
You know,
Actually, there was no way. I didn't notice this, but a few lines down, Robert White said more like 1850s. So it's.
Oh. Yeah,
So I don't know. Your time frame is kind of like right in between. So maybe.
Yeah, he didn't, come out and tell me, I mean,
right.
I was just, and as for why he's sad, I mean, I gotta be honest. If I was a kid inside that building with everything that goes on in it, I'd be more than sad. I'd be scared most of the time. I mean, there's just an awful lot of energy in that building. And when I say that some of it's bad, I don't mean, big scary demon bad. I mean, there's a lot of strict adult spirits in there, and some that just aren't nice.
Well, and you've said before that the spirits would interact with each other. So, and it seemed like some were repressing others. So, you think he may have been repressed by some of the other spirits there?
Yeah, I am pretty positive about that. I mean, some of the stuff that I had seen and experienced in that building is stuff that you would expect to see on TV. I mean, it was just. It'd make a great movie, I mean, there was stuff, just physical, interaction. There's like plot twists and just backstory, just all kinds of stuff going on. And I had never experienced anything like that anywhere else, And I mean, all these people, go to all these different places to get to as many places they can get to. I went to the same place every night, every weekend. I didn't see a need to go anywhere else because it wasn't just the same stuff going on all the time. It was just constant source of, WTF moments and, what the hell is going on here moments. Am I losing my shit moments? And is this really happening? I mean, we're talking, children should be seen and not heard type of, adulting, parenting, if you want to call it. Where we would leave toys, for the kids. There was another little girl in there also. We would leave toys and stuff, and we'd come back, and I was the only one that really went upstairs, but all of a sudden this chair materialized, and we still do not know where that chair came from.
It just showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was just upstairs. Physically, I was the only one out of all of us that went in there that could go upstairs without a ladder up the side of the building. So getting a chair up there would be noticed.
Yeah.
I mean, there was just really no way to get one up there, and a little hole that you had to crawl through to get up in there.
It sounded like you had to do some real acrobatics to get up there.
Yeah, my father, thank goodness, helped out with that and made it a little easier. But before that, you basically had to stand on the back of a chair while someone held on to it so you didn't fall, up on top of a sink and crawl up through this little cubbyhole looking, thing with just rafters in between you and the bottom. It wasn't safe at all, but going up the side of a building in a ladder was entirely too noticeable for me, so we had permission, obviously, but I just didn't really try the ladder up the side of the building, for the public, to see it.
Right.
And anyway, this chair, as soon as you got up into the cubbyhole, you were coming into the kitchen, and the chair was sitting in the middle of a kitchen floor, and it was facing the cubbyhole, and the toys that we had left were sitting there in a pile, which is not how I put them there.
Of course.
And it was almost like it almost looked like the setup for like a punishment. Like you got these toys from this, woman, but you're not supposed to talk to her or play with her, so here's the toys, but you have to sit here and look at them and not touch them. And then we got an EVP from this really mean sounding woman that says, I own the doll. And it just snowballed from there for me, because I took up for those kids all the time. And I honestly sometimes did feel like I had lost my mind, because I thought to myself, am I getting them in more trouble? by doing this? And is the situation one where, they're actually physically getting in trouble? I mean, we had heard EVPs where it sounded like someone being smacked and then children crying. And I'm telling you what, if there was a way to beat a spirit's ass, that would have been the time. I mean, I literally would have put the smack down on somebody for that.
Now,
but it was just...
We have a bunch of questions piling up in the chat, but there is one that is specific to this particular conversation about this location. From Sean Oldsmith, one of our friends down there in Australia. Have you ever seen the toys being played with?
I've heard some of the toys being played with. There were some really old toys there. Like vintage, if you will. I mean, like, it was a consignment store and an antique store. So some of the stuff in there was pretty old, like old toys. But there was this one little wooden cat, and it was on wheels. And whenever you moved it, the wheels would squeak. So we would make sure that one was out in the open a lot. If you heard some squeaking upstairs, you knew what that was.
Right.
And so, we had put it in a room, and we heard the squeaking noise quite a bit. And I'm like, well, that's the cat, So I'll pop up in there and see what's going on. And I got to be honest, that cat was facing me right in the cubbyhole when I popped my head up in there. It scared the crap out of me. It was a creepy looking cat too. It was wooden, and it was creepy. There were other things, that happened that, since we didn't have, cameras to document stuff at the time, we didn't really use it as evidence because, for all the public would know, if we did offer it up as evidence, oh, you guys totally did that because, you weren't catching it in real time. So, there was a lot of stuff we just, we've heard more than we've seen, which was one of the questions that, had popped up, in my mind, where you could hear toys being played with while you were looking at them, but then couldn't see them move, but it sounded like they were being played with. So were they really? Because sometimes stuff gets...
Were they getting moved on a different plane of existence, maybe?
Yeah, so, but I've seen stuff move, and I've seen stuff happen on this plane of existence. So I guess the conditions just have to be favorable, or maybe... I have no idea, but there's been a few times where I've heard stuff going on in real time. I just couldn't see it.
Right. Interesting. So from Judy Wilson, also concerning this location, this is only our first one so far. This is about Byron specifically. So is he aware that he has passed?
I've never asked him, I mean, he looks young enough that... Let me back up a little bit.
It's not something we usually, it's not something we ask, but, sometimes they let you know that they have.
Let me, my friend Tanya, I don't know if she's watching or not. She knows we have a show. And she is very much psychic. And we took her into the building, and we were giving her the walkthrough. She didn't know any of the history. And we made sure of that. She didn't know, we didn't really make a lot of it public. Some of the stuff was public knowledge, but not the earlier stuff that we really had to dig for. And it was so, I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it because we have an EVP of it. I know that he knows that he fell out of that tree. I don't know if he knows if he died.
Okay.
Because we captured an EVP. You'll hear her. On the audio, she was looking, we were pointing out stuff in the back of the room. We hadn't quite pointed upstairs yet, but all of a sudden she was looking around. She looked up. She was like, oh my God, there's a boy up there. And she took off running and hopped up on that counter in the kitchen. And you hear this little child's voice say, I'm falling.
Oh, wow. Which would tie right into the tree that used to be there since he fell out of the tree. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I mean, so I know he knows he fell.
So he knows he fell, but he may not know that he's passed.
Right. I don't know.
Okay.
It's really sad. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I know you've had a connection with him. I understand.
I haven't seen him for like 4 years, you know?
Yeah. Well, you haven't been able to get back in there to visit.
No. But I would like to.
So, Jeannie, if you're watching this, let Shana back in, please.
Yeah, he was my first. He wasn't my first child that I interacted with, but he was the first one that I had like a really solid connection with.
Yeah. So, a couple other. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay. We have a couple of general questions. So, from Fungi, and maybe this will bring you back. I'm sorry, my love. It's okay, though. Do kids maintain their child mentality? Do their mind never mature? So, it seems to me that they retain their childness. If they've passed as a child, they retain their childness as in spirit form.
Yeah, I think so because I mean, I also think that I've also kind of heard that spirits age too. I mean, I don't know. I've never witnessed it, but I've heard others talk about it. And if they age, then, you know, do their minds age too? All I know is that the kids that I've interacted with, for as long as I've interacted with them, they've just always been the same to me.
Well, something that's interesting that I've heard of is that, okay, if it seems like if, you know, the child passed, you know, as a child and they're already aware of themselves and gotten to, like, you know, at least some certain age, and they passed as a child, and they basically stayed as a child spirit. But like a twin that passed away, you know, as a baby, maybe they passed, you know, as they were being born or just after being born or what have you, has stuck around as a spirit and actually aged along with their living twin, which is really kind of interesting. And so then, you know, as they, you know, as the living twin matured, so did this spirit. And I've heard of like twins being haunted by their twin that passed, you know, in the womb or just after being born. So I find that very interesting. So very different though. All right. So from Dawn, Spooky Spectacular, have you ever been touched by a child spirit?
A lot.
Yeah, they kind of reach out to you a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I've had the usual, just, you know, I felt them like tug on my hand, grab my arm. I kind of, when I was living in Alton, Illinois, where Mineral Springs is, I lived there for probably 5 years, something like that. And then my very first child spirit was a little girl. And I've actually felt her, you know, sit next to me when I was reading her stories. And then, you know, I've felt her. I've asked for, you know, hugs before, you know, from kids. You know, and only one time from her did I really feel something that might, you know, resemble that. And I kind of initially, you know, in my own mind blew it off because I had just asked for one. So was my body tricking me into thinking that I had just gotten one?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I second guessed stuff like that. You know, had I not asked for it and then felt it, you know, I probably would have, you know, believed in it a little more. Did I want it to be true? Yes. You know, because how cool would that be? You
Sure.
know? but yeah, I get, I've had, during interactions with what I knew were children, have had my hair, played with, um, and yeah, and Jeannie, actually, I would love to have her as a guest on this show. I'm going to try to get her on, because we have a really loud, clear,
She's allowed to get
mama.
on if we get into the cafe.
Right. Um, Someone was standing right next to her. Not only was the mama heard out loud, but we had also captured it on EVP, and um, I mean, she was there, for that one, and so as long as those kids aren't alone in that building, and there's at least somebody, there that they trust or that they feel comfortable around, and it was more of that too. A lot of the reason why I spent a lot of time in that building, not just from a paranormal standpoint, but just because, I felt so concerned, for those kids. And then,
Right.
As long as I stayed in Kempsville, once I left the city completely, um, visitation, from Byron or whoever else followed me home stopped. So I kind of felt like I abandoned him. There'd be times when I would leave for a weekend and I'd be like, you can't stay here without somebody. You gotta go.
Right. So he would follow you home at times.
Yeah, he came to visit a lot, and Rita was there for some of it. She'd be a good one too, because her and I had a lot of shared experiences in there.
Very cool. So let's move
We
on
could have
to
a cafe.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Oh, we gotta definitely have an episode. You guys talk about the cafe for quite a while. So, and I'm still would want to get in there. Let's
I'm
move.
trying.
I know. Let's move on to another location though. So, all right. So now this is you at Vandalia in the room where we've witnessed you've witnessed the little boy, and for those that aren't familiar with what the Vandalia location is, that is where we went live the other, what was it, about a week and a half ago?
Yeah.
Something like that. And so that's the historic building there in Vandalia. But this is the room in which you have experienced the little boy that's there. So you want to talk a little bit about him? Because we have, and I'll throw up these other ones. There was an interesting moment in which, we were sitting down there, and this is blurry, I know, but you felt him in that corner, and as you were reaching out your hand like that, I could see this like mist. It was like a shadow, but misty, and it was over your hand. And I don't know if this really picked it up very well at all. Some people have said that they've seen it viewing the video. I didn't really viewing the video, but and that's another angle of it with the UV light. But yeah, so you were feeling him in that corner. I thought I was seeing this shadow over your hands, but overall, this is that room, and there's a boy in there. And I know that you've interacted with him a few times now.
Yeah, my first time in that building, like I said, the first floor, didn't really feel too much. But as soon as we got up to that second floor, or well, I guess would be what, the third floor?
Yeah, it's the third floor, yeah. We refer to it the second floor because it's like the second floor of the building that's not used, but it's really the third floor. So if you look at the building, it's going to be that top one with the glowing window. The glowing window is a different room, but it's going to be down the hallway from there.
Yeah, I didn't see him. Not like the way I would see.
Not like Byron. Not like Byron.
No, yeah, not like Byron. I didn't see him that way. Just there was this really solid, connection though, there. And, I could feel child energy in there. I could also feel adult energy too. And like I said, um, sometimes it's just adult energy, child energy. Sometimes I can tell, if it's male or female, but, for this one was just child energy. And then, you know, was kind of interactive, like a child, too. There were times when I'd be, I'd feel like he would come out of that room. But I think he mostly just stuck to that room. I was drawn to that room more than, any of the other ones. And then that night when we were leaving, I didn't want to leave. I would have stayed there. I would have slept in that room. And that doesn't happen for me
Right.
often, but I would have stayed there, and I didn't want to leave. And I could, see a shadow, moving around, back there, as I was saying goodbye. And, I had said, I'd come back. But instead of waiting for me to come back, it was to describe it, it kind of almost felt like someone, knocking, on the door, inside your mind and being like, hello, I'm here. Let's play, let's talk.
Right.
And it would almost felt like being in kind of a meditative state, which I had, when I talked about before, I said, I am so glad I wasn't driving and so glad, I wasn't at work or I was alone, when it happened the first time. And I was, mentally, at least in my mind, immediately could see that room. And this time I could actually see him. Like I said, I could describe him in the same kind of detail as I could describe Byron, and Adam could probably draw him. But every time I interact with him, whether like that or whether in dreams or whatever, his lips move, but no sound comes out. I can't hear him. I've heard Byron's voice on audio.
Well, what's interesting with this one is that we've gone live from there twice, and it seems like during those live investigations, because we have, psychics that have, been in there with us during those investigations. I know Bree Jones has commented on this boy a couple of times. Vanessa has. And so there's some different variables that are thrown in the mix that, we, like the last time we tried to confirm, like somebody said, and I can't remember who it was, somebody tried to throw out there that he was German, so we tossed that stuff out there. Somebody said his name was Charlie. We've tossed that out there. Because he seems to connect with you a lot more. So any indication at all about those facts, or just general child spirit, and you can't actually hear his voice?
Yeah, I all I know is that he's, a child, and he is in definite need of a haircut.
He's in need of a haircut.
Just uneven, haircut. But I don't know his story. I mean, I feel like he's, I wouldn't say overly, sad, but there's some times that I can feel some frustration, maybe because, I can't tell what he's saying. I'm German. I mean, you can't get any more German than me. I took it in college because it was part of my major and I didn't have a choice. But, I know how to count, and I know hello and goodbye. That's about it.
Shana Smith is saying, next time take clippers.
Right? I mean, and then too, we have documentation of at least a family that lived there, but he does not fit, at least what I'm seeing, any of those ages at all. Yeah. So, but it was also a hotel.
Right. And people say there was also a brothel at some point. So, you like to think he wasn't connected to that aspect of it, but you never know,
Yeah.
So it was a lot of different things. You're talking about a building that's been there for over 100 years, You know, it was a bank at times, drugstore at times, at the upstairs, like you said, at times was used as a hotel. So you just don't know where it's going to come into play. And it's different than the child that's downstairs. The child that's downstairs seems to be connected with the family that had actually lived there and used the bottom part. They had the storefront, but then they used part of the bottom there as a living quarters as well. So you have multiple children in the same location, but different.
Yeah, I don't feel a connection between those two at all. I haven't listened to the audio from being alone in that room with him yet either. By the time I get home at night, I'm exhausted.
Oh yeah, we got back at 4 a.m. that last time we were there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I have not listened, to that audio yet, and I don't know if you have either, but because your recorder was next.
Yeah, I had your recorder in there, or my recorder in there with you as well. Yeah.
But he was. There was definitely some interaction, going on, and I face the wall. I face the corner, that I feel him in sometimes, and then there's other times I'll turn away and tell him, if he doesn't want me, turned around looking at him, I'll turn around, but every once in a while, reach out and let me know he's there. And if he just wants to just hang out, but I ask him questions and stuff and tell him, I'd like it if he could answer me if he's allowed to. And if not, if he just wants to spend time together, then,
there you go.
Let me know he's there, so.
Yeah. So Sherry Wilmon says, glad I found you here. Periscope is glitchy. Well, we try to simulcast to give all the options available. We also simulcast on Beyond the Light Network for Edge of the Rabbit Hole, which is aired on Spreaker. I forgot to mention that the first time for the first show, so that's why I'm mentioning it now. Okay, so we have a couple other questions here. Figure we'll hit on some of these. So as we kind of go in between some of the different stories of experiences you've had with child spirits. So from Robert White, and this is kind of a general spirit question, not necessarily children, but do spirits that were blind in life remain blind after passing? Because that would be hard to find the light. So, they don't have a physical body anymore. So I believe that they're able to see after passing, just kind of like the deaf or then able to hear after passing. Because it's a physical trait, a physical quality that's a part of the body, and when you no longer have a body, that should no longer be an issue. So would you agree with that, Shana?
I hope so. I would hate to think that anybody that had any type of disability that suffered in this reality would continue on with that in the next one, so I'm going to say that no, they're no longer blind, just because it makes me feel better to think that. And I hope it's true. I've never really known anybody personally that was blind. So, I can't really say.
Fair enough. From Dawn, Spooky Spectacular, is a child's energy different than an adult's?
It is to me. It like I said, it feels different. After a while, once I get used to the energy, whenever I first go into a place, it all gives me that same buzz. But a child spirit that I'm really connected with will still give me the butterflies, in my stomach, so I can tell that they're in the room. Adults, there's been some adults that I've been connected to, like on the boat, for example.
Yeah.
And then the energy, in that instance was just really strong, and I could tell that it was strong. It was male. It was, I could definitely tell. We had even gotten an EVP of a child saying, "Mommy" on the boat too, but not one time did I feel a kid.
Yeah, that's kind of really interesting. I remember you telling me that, but yeah, I know I never experienced a child on the boat. It was always adults.
there were living quarters, on the boat upstairs, and anybody that, had a kid would have stayed there. I have no idea. There's no documentation of anybody or a child, passing away, dying on the boat. So I have no idea.
Yeah, I think the closest would have been Annie, and she would have been considered a young woman, not a child. So, from Samuel Hall, is it possible that spirits live through the memories imprinted on the buildings they haunt? So I think that's certainly possible. If they, that's it's an interesting question, because there's a lot of different ways that I think that spirits interact with us or are experiencing the afterlife per se. That it seems that sometimes they are they're aware of us, and sometimes it seems to be in their setting, and sometimes it seems that they're aware of our setting. So and that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out with the paranormal, is why you have these different scenarios like that. Shana, I know you've kind of experienced both sides as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they can interact, with stuff that we have going on in our reality, because one night in the cafe, we were reading the book Wicked, which really wasn't all that appropriate. We were talking about it and kind of steering clear of the not so appropriate, parts. But we were talking about, read a little bit of it, and then decided, it's like, well, this is actually about, similar to this show, The Wizard of Oz, and we started talking more about that, put the book down and started talking more about the movie, which was more appropriate. And we started talking about Dorothy and her glittery shoes. And then on audio you hear, a kid laugh and repeat the word shoes, back at us. And, we've, captured, a lot of relevant, EVPs to stuff that's going on right then, not just from kids, but, from adults too.
Right.
And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like, there's still hours of hidden, lost, EVPs that hasn't even been listened to 4 years later. I mean, there was just so much. We were in that building so often, and then we just couldn't keep up, and then life, gets in the way, and you get busy, and you need a person, you need your own person that does just that. That's just their job. Here's some money. This is what we need you to do,
There you go.
But that's all you do. Yeah. But then there's other times where they've said things that we were just like, what? That it was not relevant to anything or anybody, it almost just some random word like a ghost app would throw out. And you're like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Oh, wait, it's an app. It's not relevant. But it's like that, sometimes. It's like, I have no idea what that is, WTF file until further notice.
Right.
That's where that stuff went. So
from April M. Wimigwans, I hope I'm saying that right. I always thought a child ghost meant demonic. Have you ever encountered a demonic entity pretending to be a child spirit? I have not. I haven't actually encountered in... I have to mention this a lot lately. In being involved with the paranormal over 25 years now, I have not encountered a demonic. Shana?
I've encountered mean spirits, but adults can be mean. Doesn't mean they're demons. I think that you will discover that when you're watching the TV shows that talk about that all the time, that if you remember that it's for entertainment purposes only and just TV, you'll discover that not everything is a demon.
Yeah, I mean...
I couldn't be more serious about that.
Yeah, it's what sells now. So any of these, we had the whole episode on demons last time with Inside the Upside Down. So, all the movies now, will have a great ghost story going on, but then it has to turn out to be a demon. Why? Because demons sell. So that's where a lot of the television shows have gone now, is everything has to amp up to be a demon because demons sell. So,
like I said, In another show, the closest thing, that I've come is an EVP from a spirit saying, I own that soul.
Yeah.
Did anything that happen? No.
Yeah. And for me, it was, the episode that we did for The Haunted caught the EVP die in the middle of, the girl getting punched in the gut. And we were pushing out what we knew to be a malevolent spirit, not demonic. Malevolent, yeah. Had once been human, but it's one of those, if you're a human, or if you're an asshole as a human, then you're probably an asshole as a ghost. So, yeah. So that is that. All right. So, I'm sure we're going to talk about this many more times. Because I know there's still even on that demon video, there's still some questions that are out there and comments that are out there on that video that I have to go back and address, because it keeps coming up about, well, I thought they're all demonic, and and then of course you get the whole, well, the Bible says this. So no, they're not all demons. So all right, let's move on to the Minellis. Or I guess you said it's Minellis now, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'm stuck on Minelli because that's the way it looks. So this is one where it was very interesting, because we were there, doing one of our cemetery crawls, and I'm just going by with the video camera, and I noticed this setup with the gravestones that you had the mother and father in the middle. It's a family plot. Mother and father in the middle. On the one side were the 3 boys. On the other side were the 2 girls. But all 3 of the boys died in childhood, while the 2 girls lived on to, grew up and lived on to have full lives. And you seem to have connected with at least one of the boys here. And then there's always this spot that you step in over there where you start getting that buzz. So
yeah,
what's going on here?
It's kind of weird, there is activity in cemeteries. Do we think that, people hang around their remains? I don't think that they come specifically to hang out with their remains, but I think that they come to hang out with the people that visit cemeteries, including family. Now, this particular family, their place of residence was just right up the road.
Right.
So this would have been, just within walking distance for them. And then there's this one spot. Let's see. I guess it would be not the one to. It would be the one to the viewer's right, where Ghosty is at. And there's a spot, not on the side of the ground where I'm sitting, but on the opposite side. Whenever I step into a certain spot, and there's like an indentation in the ground, but I have to be coming at it from that angle, and I have to hit it with my right foot. And as soon as I do, it is just like this supercharged, energy. If I come at it with my left foot, if I step over onto it from the other side, if I come at it from the other direction, it is not the same thing. It is only just that one spot coming at it a certain way with a certain foot. It is the weirdest thing that I have ever experienced in my life, and I have no idea what it means or why it's happening. But it happens every time.
Right. Yeah, it's just really strange. And you've had me do that too, and I don't feel it as much as you, but I do feel a little bit when I come at it from that specific angle. It's definitely very, very strange.
It's weird. And then one night, I was feeling just super drawn to the cemetery. I was feeling someone trying to reach out, couldn't tell where it was coming from. I could tell like it wasn't right in the building with me in the house, but I could tell that I was going to have to travel to get there. And then, all of a sudden it just, became kind of clear, who it was. But it was at night, and I would have been out there, alone. And I typically only during the day would go to a cemetery by myself. The energy there I don't really like being anywhere that I investigate alone. To me, it's just too overwhelming. I either block it all out or I can't block any of it out. I can't just let some of it in. It just feels like, I'm not the type of person to get anxiety or anything like that. But there's just sometimes where it's just like, oh my God, everybody just back off, and it gets like that, when I'm by myself, but the urge to go there was so strong. And, and I did end up going out there, during the daytime, but, and I could just feel just like, and I knew who it was, I could tell, I could feel the same energy. But I couldn't see him,
What did you say? One of the boys visited you at home?
Yeah. I mean, I could feel, like who it was. I could tell, where it was coming from, but I couldn't really see, So I mean, I could kind of in my mind's eye kind of, maybe pick out some, potential, characteristics, but I couldn't really I could see, sense, feel, whatever you want to call it. Um that he had, didn't have black hair, but had like a little lighter colored hair, brown, possibly. Um, but that was about it. Lighter colored eyes, but I couldn't really, pick out any of the other features, and I couldn't tell, why he was being so persistent. Um, and I knew, and after going to sleep that night, I was 100% positive that's who I was dealing with.
Yeah.
So sleep with a lapis under your pillow.
There you go.
That helped a lot.
There is one other I wanted to talk about, and I forgot to toss it up here, and then we got a couple other questions we'll get to. We're actually starting getting close to our hour mark, and some people have been signing off. I know as we get closer to midnight here in the East, then some people start to fall off. I completely understand that, but we are technically the Edge of the Rabbit Hole after hours show, so your after hours, you go a little longer. And I forgot to load it up here because it was just one of those days, and I'm still recovering, so my brain isn't still entirely with me. But let me try to find it here, and that is from the Kempsville grade school. Basically, that shadow that we captured, and it was about the height of a 10-year-old child. We went out there and we tested it, and it seemed to be very playful, kind of always trying to separate us, and kind of doing that sort of thing where it had us kind of running around back and forth around the school. And here we go. So there is our short shadow person about the height of what we called a 10-year-old. So now I know that different things happen in the gym here, where you were feeling a number of different things, and we caught EVPs at the same time that you were kind of getting poked and prodded. And then, like I said, it was kind of playing with us where it would separate us and had us going back and forth throughout the school. And then the one time that we were sitting there, and we would hear it walk in the gym. And the one time we were sitting there in the bleachers, we caught on video this is a screen cap, but we actually saw it walking in the video. So you want to talk a little bit about this? I mean, we don't have a lot of details of this particular child, but at least a little bit about what you were kind of sensing and feeling at the time with this one.
Yeah, that one, I never really had any good feelings back there at that area of the building. Which usually for involving a child is kind of odd for me, because I don't usually feel, too uncomfortable around kids. There was also obviously adult energy back there too. But the child, seemed to spend a lot of time in the gym. I felt it in there a lot. When we did the height comparison to go stand, come up about chest high on me. And I mean, it was playful, but not like young, like little, like toddler playful. It was kind of like, kind kind of like, oh, hey, I'm over here. Oh, now I'm over here. Come over here. Kind of the back and forth deal. I went to school there from in the 80s, all the way from, first grade to graduating there in the 8th grade.
Right.
And the whole time that I was there, anytime we'd have tornado drills or anything like that, we would all go near that area. And sometimes we'll go down those stairs. And, basements to me are creepy anyway. And I didn't have anything going on with paranormal.
Anytime we ever went down that basement, you wanted to get out of there so quick. You're like, okay, we're down here. I don't know why you would want to be down here. Let's go.
Yeah, the only time that I was not super, excited to just get in, get out, be done with it, was when I went in there with Tammy and Tanya Hain, the twins that I went to school with. Yeah. We went to school there together on our very last day in there to explore it before, the owners had to give up the keys. And I bet we were down in that basement for 30 minutes. And
nice.
I never had my back, I was never the last one in the room, but the whole time, we were there, and stuff was going on. I mean, we could hear stuff going on, outside of the basement. But I mean, that was the only time where I didn't really feel too terribly uncomfortable down there. And I don't know why, maybe the energy was just, different that day.
Zippy is asking, was that the school where you caught the child entity in the doorway? I guess, it's Kempsville grade school. So that was, as we were looking down the stairs, and Shana was kind of describing the stairs going down, and we basically deduced that the one time that we were down there, and Shana's asking the spirits, I don't know why you want to hang out down in the basement, let's go. As we were walking out, I mentioned to Shana, I was like, anytime we come down to the basement, nothing's going on, but we hear all this activity coming up from the stairs, so maybe it's just on the stairs itself. And so Shana suggested, well, let's set up a camera at the top of the stairs looking down and see if we capture anything. So we did that. And it was, what we caught was the apparition of a woman, arms folded. You could see the hair, the dress, the whole thing. And a lot of other people have since said, and I have a hard time seeing it, but other people have seen it, is a child in that doorway, kind of back behind that woman, kind of peering through. So, yeah, it's that one. I just have a hard time seeing the child in that.
I feel like there was nothing documented, and I don't remember anything of any deaths of children in that school. At least not while I was in it. Mm-hmm. And, I've asked, different, people if they knew of anyone. I almost feel like whoever is there might be attached to the property of whatever, maybe the school that was there previously. It doesn't explain the footsteps on the second floor.
The second floor that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah, which are obviously residual. I mean, there's no second floor, so it has to be. I would think. So I have no idea. And I'm hoping that the archaeology department doesn't hang on to the building forever and ever, because as soon as they let go of it, I'm getting back in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely want to get back in there once they've let go of that. That was a great place to investigate. We got a lot of activity there, and just it's very mysterious to me. And I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was looking into all of that history. We were going to the old land plaza trying to figure out, was there another building right where this specific school had been? And of course, the archaeological dig was there from way back in the day, and they built a school right on top of it, and just all of this stuff associated with it. So I really enjoyed just us. I remember you and I were up one night course, you're out in Illinois, I'm in Ohio, and we're just on the phone for like hours and hours and hours one night,
It was
just
4:30
researching. And it was 4:30 in the morning when we finally got finished up. That was, yeah, that's great memories right there. So, all right, a couple other questions that we have here, more in general. So, this is from Madeline Wyman. Do you ever get scared while ghost hunting?
Yes. I will be the first one to admit that, yes, I do. And sometimes I wonder, where the fear comes from. Because I'm not scared of spirits that I'm familiar with. But the places that we go, there's so much other energy there too. There's been times where I've just felt just so uncomfortable, and that I had to leave the building. The night that, in the cafe, that the furniture was thrown around and stuff, was that scary.
That's where you get physically harmed.
Yeah. That was the game changer for me, which put me more on my guard.
Yeah, once they're throwing bookcases at you, I mean, you can't stand there and be like, I'm gonna take it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, and we didn't even, it's not like we were being rude or confrontational or anything like that. Although I will say that if there was any building that I would do that in, at least two of the spirits in there didn't get what they really deserved in life. I think they didn't deserve any respect, in the afterlife. And they continued on being assholes.
Yeah.
I will say that for sure. So I've experienced it myself. I've seen others experience it, and just, I give respect, if I'm respected. Respect is something, that not everybody deserves. So if you're disrespectful to me, I'm going to be disrespectful to you.